control legislation. It is from March for Our Lives, and it comes on the heels of a new report that says 608 people have been killed in more than 500 mass shootings in the U.S. since a gunman opened fire at Parkland High School in 2018. Joining me now is the Federal Affairs Manager for March for Our Lives, Eve Levenson. Eve, with a welcome to you. Let's talk about this agenda, which is called A Peace Plan for a Safer America. Take us through what your movement is calling for and how it changes the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. So our new proposed peace plan has 6 parts which spell out the acronym CHANGE. The C is that we need to change the standard of gun ownership in America. And with this, we're calling for a licensing and registration system in addition to a ban and buyback of assault weapons. The H is that we want to halve the number of gun deaths in 10 years. The A is that we need more accountability for the gun industry. This includes revisiting the DC versus Heller case, repealing FACA, and also looking into the nonprofit status of the NRA. The N is that we need to name a director of gun violence prevention who will act as an advisor to the presidency. The G is that we want to generate community-based solutions, and the crux of this point is really making sure that we're funding the community violence intervention programs that we know to work. And the E is to empower the next generation of voters through automatic voter registration.
Look, I said it was comprehensive, but let's get to how you are going to use this towards 2020. What are your plans on that?
Yeah, so this peace plan is really for everybody, for any individual person to do, for anybody in government, specifically looking at the 2020 presidential candidates. We hope that presidential candidates will be able to use the peace plan as a sort of goal and guiding post as they create their own policies and plans for what they're going to do to get rid of our gun violence epidemic.
You know, White House officials told the Daily Beast this week that the reason the president has started backtracking on his support for background checks is because, quote, he's started to move on. There will be an uphill battle, certainly, to win over Republicans and the president. Do you expect this proposal, the one you just outlined, change, to grab the president's attention?
So I would first say that the notion of the president saying that he can move on is a luxury that a lot of people don't have. It's not a luxury that survivors have who are experiencing trauma on a daily basis. It's not a luxury that people living in communities that experience everyday gun violence have, because it's an everyday reality for them. And so I would encourage the president and any other politician to realize that they're representing a constituency in a nation in which gun violence isn't something you can move past. I would love for the president to read our plan and consider it and endorse it. At the same time, I think that that's probably unlikely, but I think that there are members of Congress and people at state legislators, and more importantly, activists on the ground, who are going to continue to make sure that this stays a priority in the minds of politicians at all levels. All levels.
Absolutely, Eve, but you have got to be frustrated at the fact that mass shootings happen, and then people do tend to move on. What is it going to take? I mean, we had Representative Eric Swalwell of California, a former presidential candidate, who his main platform was dealing with gun control and gun safety issues, and he dropped out. He didn't get the traction that he needed, despite going around the country and making that topic A for him. What is it going to take to get people to keep this in mind and act on it, make our legislators do something?
I think it's going to take people all around the country, students, survivors, doctors, teachers, making sure and holding their legislators accountable. The reality is that in our government, if it's not something that's necessarily on the media, or if it's not something that's that officers are getting a lot of emails or calls about, they're going to move past it. And so that's where this really becomes a grassroots effort, and where it's the responsibility of our tens of thousands of supporters across the country and all the other groups we work with to make sure that we're continuing to protest, we're continuing to call, email, etc. And off of the point about Representative Saul and his presidential bid, I think that the reality, and something that I really appreciate about it, was how he said that one of his goals was to bring it to the forefront of the presidential election. I think that that is a reality, and that's something that we also are very focused on with our upcoming presidential forum with Giffords in Las Vegas on October 2nd.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, I can just say that this is not an issue that will get lost here on this broadcast. We're going to keep it front and center. Thank you very much, Eve Levenson. Mayor Pete on the campaign trail. New salvos aimed directly at the president.